welcome to the round 1 episode of the Collingwood Rant. I'm Sly.
And I'm round 1, episode 1, versus 23 to some 14 Spook.
Let me throw some adjectives at you, Spook.
Do they involve 4 letters?
No. Deplorable, plotting, aimless.
That's outside my vocabulary. What do those words mean?
They're words that I used to describe something horrific from Friday night.
Your dinner?
No, James Brayshaw's commentary. But enough about that. Let's talk about the game.
Do we have to?
Unfortunately, it's our job. We get paid the big bucks.
That's it.
Alright, so going into this game, what was the expectation?
That Darcy Moore would dominate.
And what else did you think? Did you think it would win?
We're going to the game, no. I'm a bit cagey about how our season's going to start. But once you're at the pub and you're catching up with the boys and a few beers are into you, you start thinking it's probably a winnable game for us. We have the Dogs haven't beaten us since about 3 days ago. Was 4 years ago. Prior to that, you're thinking, it's round 1, anything can happen. It just didn't.
I think the last time they beat us was that game where we lost about 6 players within the game. Okay, so you looked at it as winnable, but in terms of your emotional response or your emotional expectation, how did you feel approaching Collingwood?
Once the start was sluggish, the expectation went back to normal for me, that it was just, I'm not getting emotionally invested in this. This is probably what deep inside of me I sort of expected and sort of think this is what a lot of the year's going to look like. It was more like you just thought, well, yeah.
I mean, I look at it from, you go back to 2004, we'd lost the 202 grand final, lost the 203 grand final, and I was just despondent as a fan, sitting in the fucking stands, having a drink, having a laugh. But 2004, I just thought, I don't have the energy for this. They've just totally raised me. Going into this year, I feel the same. It feels like they've broken something. Seeing Adam Treloar in the Bulldogs jumper, and I'm not talking about like Treloar specifically as an individual, but seeing him as being part of that trade debacle, he became like an icon for my disenfranchisement. It was like, this is real. You totally broke the list. And if you look at that side that we fielded, one of the big defences of getting rid of these 3 players was we believe we have the players to cover them.
Really?
The comedy stylings of the Collingwood Football Club. Do you find it interesting that Treloar started on the wing? I mean, we've been calling for that for 3 years, so thanks, Luke Beveridge.
Thanks for listening.
Yes.
He's one of our 4 listeners.
It seems to me they tried to get him more on the outside, to get him playing more a running, linking role to suit his skill set. Apparently, he never hits a target, which might come as a surprise to...
Seemed to hit a few Bulldog ones.
Yeah, McNaughton for that second goal.
Maybe he hasn't had the Collingwood weeded out of him yet.
Oh, well, it's going. One interesting, you went to the game, I watched it on television.
Slacker.
Okay, did you last at the game? So
I refuse to respond on the grounds that I may incriminate myself.
Gary Lyon claimed that for the first 6 minutes we try to match the Dogs at their own game, which is the running, kicking, move it really quickly. But when they kicked the first 3 goals, we decided, no, this isn't going to work. Let's go back to our more stodgy defensive game. Now, did you see that? Because I'm looking at it and thinking, we struggle to maintain one game plan, and Gary Lyon's saying now we have 2, and we can just switch between them as required.
It's like magic.
It's like, an American football team setting out a play, going, I'm going to do this. Because, under Buckley, particularly from 214 to 217, there were plenty of times we were jumped, and you just spent the rest of the game trying to reel the lead in. And that's all I saw. I just thought Bulldogs were too quick, too slick. They jumped us, and we finally started getting some of the tempo, and that's when it became more of a dour struggle. I don't actually see that we tried anything different.
No, I think that was the most disappointing thing being there.
But particularly in that 6 minutes, that first 6 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty much that reverting to form was the easier route to take. And you sort of look at that and you're going, seriously, what did you do over the pre-season? You clearly must know what your deficiencies look like by now. And what have you done to address them? Oh, you've gone back to practicing what you've been doing for the last couple of years.
Well, they talked about they had totally refurbished the game plan. I'm going to play quicker. Nathan Buckley mentioned that in the practice game against Richmond. You're saying, if the rule changes, this is the way it's going to go. And I really saw none of that. And
I saw it on Twitter today at training.
Yeah, we saw the original game plan on Twitter, which showed them just chipping the ball around under no pressure and hitting targets. And I think he said, at this rate, it'll take, until that June before they upload a shot at goal.
I think they're still going.
And you had like a few times, Pendlebury went long to the goalie for that first goal, who then kicked long to Cox. Darcy Moore had that brilliant play where he streamed out of the fence, kicked it long to, was it Rusco, who turned around and kicked it.
Did he have a touch?
Yeah. I'll get onto that in a second. So there's a few times they did it, but they really, watching them, they lack any system in trying to get this happening. It's like when you watch Richmond and they get the ball, they just have a wave of runners just sweeping forward. Watching the Dogs, every time they got the ball, I seriously thought they're a chance to score here because they just had this system of running.
Yeah, they just took it on.
But every time I watch us get the ball, it's like players just flat-footed, stationary, going, okay, and then they do the little handballs, waiting for someone to break open, and it's like, by the time they do, if they do, there's nothing forward of the ball, and it's just like, oh, we'll just kick it in the air then anyway, or go sideways and look for a...
There was a general air of listlessness about them too, that, look, it's round one. I don't know how heavy, whether you up your training loads and you look a little bit sluggish at the start and you get into a rhythm. I mean, look...
We don't need to up training loads to look sluggish.
if you had to draw some fair comparisons, it was a strange round one, as they often are. There were some really good games, but a lot of them tapered off too into the fact that they all looked a little bit tired, but we sort of looked tired from the outset. I don't know whether that's just hesitant ball use or what the story is there, but we just didn't have any... But I don't think we're not necessarily over endowed with pace with a lot of our players, but there's just a lot of standing and watching at times.
That's a lot of the way we play. It's flat-footed players trying to find, I don't know, space or whatever. After 10 years, I don't know. I really don't know.
Does anyone know? If you know, put it in the comments below.
I mean, just to look at Nathan Buckley as coach for a moment, because one of the arguments here is, you don't make a grand final unless you can coach, which he did in 218. But the qualification of that is they played a totally different style in 218. So why have they abandoned the one season they look the most dangerous and consistent?
Well, that's the baffling... I mean, we've been talking about this for a couple of seasons now. Why did you find something that worked and then ran away from it? I don't know whether they thought it was sustainable or what the story is, but it's just... We're a bit of a dour, boring side to watch at times. I mean, there was some of those highlights, though, that you brought up before. They have really well linked passages of play, and you've got it in you. Why aren't you looking to do that more often?
I think one of the problems is in terms of the midfielders, you don't really have those sort of players. Adams is someone that should be getting in and under. Sire, similarly. Pendlebury's never been like a line breaker in terms of pace. He tends to create space through his poise.
Used to.
Yeah. But then you get guys like Treloar and Stevenson who should have been those players. Tom Phillips maybe to a lesser extent. And the halfback line, you get Noble and Crisp and Maynard and Quaynor, who should all be doing that. I mean, the one thing that disappoints me with Buckley is... we lambast him, I'm just saying us, but you look at the message boards and we lambast him for not being adventurous. But then when he makes moves, they're really bewildering. It's like, okay, you drafted Trey Rusco as a utility defender, and now he's a forward. You pushed Noble up to a wing when I would have thought that Quaynor was probably the better option there, who's got like a lot more poise and flash. Crisp got pushed into the middle, where I think Maynard's probably the better option there. So he sort of makes these changes and you look at them and think, I think the idea is right, but your selection isn't that great. I mean, looking at the game too. So, possession-wise, Trey Rusco, 3 touches. Oliver Henry on debut, 4 touches. Josh Dacos. Breakout year last year as a wingman. Where would you play him round 1 this year?
Oh, not the wing.
No, why would you? And allegedly...
Didn't we get rid of Phillips because there wasn't enough room for him on the wing?
No, that's a good point, yeah.
I don't know. I know. Does anyone know? If you do, put it in the comments down below.
And you played as a defensive forward.
Unless you're watching it upside down, you can put him up there.
So Dacos played as a defensive forward after having a breakout year as a midfielder. And you've lost Treloar from the midfield and Phillips from the midfield. So surely you're not going to deprive the midfield further by removing Dacos. Side bottom's also out. So it's like this is probably the time to take whoever's left in the midfield and just leave him in the midfield. Allegedly, the Dacoses weren't happy. Talking about the family, wasn't happy about...
Oh, they weren't alone.
Where Josh lined up. Speaking to someone on Twitter, Colin G. Wood made a really good suggestion that Hoskin Elliott should be the defensive forward because he's obviously got skill, but he's always been a low possession getter anyway, so getting 10 possessions a game is not really going to affect or impact his influence. He's got the height, he can mark, he'd actually be and he's got pace. He'd be a pretty good defensive forward who then on the counter actually has a skill set to do something.
He's clearly got pace because I didn't see much of him on the night. He was moving that quick.
Yep. So, Braden Sion, 9 touches. Brodie Grundy, 11 touches.
He won the hit-outs though.
Jordan DeGoey, 16 touches.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit more there.
Of the 10 lowest possession getters, we had 8 of them. And of the 15 lowest possession getters, we had 12 of them. So our bottom end...
Oh, we got smashed, I think, through bulk of the stats.
Yeah, on the stats. But just sort of, everyone talked about the rejuvenation of the youth, the influence, or, the impact they're going to have on the playing list and all that. All right, so this is the youth, and this is the impact they had because I believe in a side-of-out system, anyone's going to struggle. And you see that anyway because you have more credentialed players who are struggling, and now you have these inexperienced players, and it's like, what do you expect them to do? So the stats, Bulldogs had 149 more disposals, 62 more kicks, 87 more handballs, tackles were 52 to 50, Bulldogs to 57 Collingwood. But Collingwood won the tap outs 46 to 19. I don't think I really saw that translate into the first use of the ball. What is wrong with Brodie Grundy now?
Jeez, I know. He looks really slow. I thought he was his pre-season form in those pracky games looked encouraging, that he seemed to have a bit of pep back in the step. He's out of the hub now, which we know was a problem for him. I was probably, like I said about the go before, I was expecting a little bit more from these players. This is the first, and it's going to be mentioned every other second, but this is the first week of your 7-year big contract. Wouldn't you sort of feel that you wanted to make a statement to put some of that to rest? Because now that's going to be dragged out every 5 minutes, like just then.
The one thing that surprised me with Grundy is when they talk to him, when you see interviews or hear interviews of him, he sounds like a really intelligent guy. But on the football field, he doesn't actually display great football intelligence. His whole repertoire of tricks is, okay, I'm going to tap the ball. That's it. I'm going to tap the ball. When that's not working, as he did 2 years ago, he didn't do it last year. 2 years ago, it's like, oh, well, I'm just going to grab it out of the ruck and take it on myself. He never seems to actually look at it, and this was really exemplified last year by his performances against a lot of ruckmen, particularly like the journeyman ruckmen were just beating him. And it's like, okay, this guy's wrestling you. What are you going to do? Nothing. I'm just going to keep playing him the same way. He never sort of turns around and goes, well, I'll play him from the other side, or I'll take a bigger run up, or I'll change the angle, or I'll just thump the ball. He just keeps doing the same thing, and I think if you're going to be a gun player in anything, you need to learn to adjust to whoever's on you or what's happening around you. And then if what you're doing is not working, then you need to find a new way to try and influence the game. But every time I watch him, and ever since he became like the name ruckman, every time I watch him and he gets beaten, and you go back to that 219 prelim against Mumford and the GWS, it's like, okay, it's not working. Change it. No. Change it. No. Statistically, he's getting 115 taps, but nothing is coming of him.
No. And you look at his performance against English. He's taken English to the cleaners the last couple of years. I think English gave him a nice little touch up this week.
I think that Stephen Martin really helped there. Sort of did a lot of the physical stuff on the run.
Wouldn't you think you'd do the exact opposite with Coxie and bring him into the ruck a little bit more?
Oh, you think he'd try something that... I mean, this is the one frustrating thing with Nathan Buckley and his coaching panel that's been there since
1922.
Yeah. They really don't show very much in the way of innovation. Except for that 1 year where they made a grand final and then they said, well, that's not going to work for us, so let's change it up. And in honesty, they show a supreme and overwhelming arrogance to say, this isn't quite working, but it's hinting at what we're trying to get to happen, so we're going to just keep trying until this works. And it's like, okay, you did that for 8 years with no result. And then you had 1 year where, I don't even think that was the game, it's not a game plan you're trying to make work now, you play something totally different. But this game plan that you've pushed for the bulk of your coaching career, it just doesn't work. And yet you're still pushing it. And as you're pushing it, I think you look at players, and I'll use Callum Brown as an example. I don't think Callum Brown's ever going to be a world beater. But I think he could be a handy midfielder. His first season was his best season. He looked sure hands. He composed in traffic. Now he just looks panicky, and it's like they've coached the instinct out of him to try and regiment him to what they're trying to do at the expense of his natural flair. And it's like, well, surely if something's working for you, you should maximise it. But you've actually gone the other way. And I think if you look at a number of players in Collingwood, they've gone backwards under this regime, because it's like the coaching staff has said, this is what we want you to do. And it's just ground all instinctiveness out of those players until they've become boring drones and uninfluential drones.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point.
And
it's a concerning point. Here we are at round one. I mean, it's early days to make calls, but look, I don't know. I don't expect too much improvement rapidly, but it'd be good to see something soon.
But the thing too is, okay, well, you want to change it up. We sort of talked about this a little bit earlier. All right, so you look at the bottom end of the list. Of the team, not the list, but of the team that
it's getting crowded down there.
So you have guys like Henry, Rusco in there. Josh Dacos is a relatively inexperienced player. Tyler Brown, Magjan. So there's a couple others there. So you have like 6-7 really inexperienced players in there. And of that 6-7, with no disrespect intended to them, there's not a Pendlebury. Like Pendlebury by 2008, Pendlebury debuted in 2006. By 2008, he was already our best midfielder. So he escalated quickly. Dale Thomas debuted in 2006. He was a gun from the beginning, and he just got better and better. With these players, and particularly because you had no lower leagues last year, these players who weren't playing AFL just missed the whole year of development.
Yeah.
And then you're going to bring up guys like Rantel and Bianco and McRae and all that, and they just weren't playing last year, so they're miles behind where they should be in terms of development and the impact they're going to have. So you have a lower end in the team, which is totally unprepared for football. And it's fine if it was like one or two players in a very well-established team like Richmond, because they plug into a really good framework and they know what they need to do, and the rest of the team feeds them. But now you're relying on, it's 1/3 of your on-field team. And then you add into it guys like Josh Thomas and Will Hoskin-Elliott, who just aren't having any impact. Roughhead struggled. And it's like, okay, so you got now from two parts of the team, from two quadrants, is like you have these young, experienced players and you have the more experienced players who aren't doing anything either. That's half your team already who's now struggling. And then you get guys like Darcy Moore and Pendles who are expected to carry the load. And it's just not going to work.
No.
And this is what I think it's going to slowly unravel on them.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you look at that side that ran out there today, there's very little depth sitting there waiting in the wings as well. You've just got a whole bunch of inexperience.
Sidebottom's the only one that came in of any great note. I mean, obviously you have guys like Chris Mayne and Levi Greenwood.
Yeah, who are closer to the end of their career than anything.
But you're not really sort of looking at that list and going, besides possibly Sidebottom, you're not looking at that list and going, well, once we get this guy and this guy in, there's going to be a quantum improvement.
No, it just can't be. You've seriously got to make the call, I think, that it's clearly it's a development year and you've got to treat it like that. There's no good like what we've seen in the past. You've got all these kids waiting in the wings and they just can't get on the park or given the opportunity to get on the park. If you're going to start developing now and you're essentially in a rebuild, you are in a rebuild, you've got to start playing these kids more and more frequently. And it's going to mean losses and it's going to mean shit performances, but it's the benefit of getting games into them now.
The thing too is with the Bulldogs, while they got a lot of the ball and they had some system, they made a lot of errors. Now, if that was, let's say we played Richmond...
No, it'd be a whitewash.
It would have been, I reckon, about a 12-goal loss. And as I said, I think at the moment they've got some self-belief because they've been finalists for 3 years. But I think once that's punctured, it's going to start to deflate slowly at first, and that self-belief's going to go out. But then they're just going to be that one performance away from sort of the players themselves realising, shit, we really aren't that good anymore. And then from that point, it's going to go bang. And we're going to have to factor in at some point, this team's going to get injuries because that's what Collingwood does.
Let me ask you, do you think, and I think I know the answer to this.
Sometimes.
Clearly with everything that's happened, the upheaval, I think some of the interactions with Treloar was telling that it's quite possible that he's losing or have lost the list after what's happened.
I don't think he's lost the list because I think they seem to be trying for him, but I do think, again, I'm reading into this, so at the end I thought it was a really nice gesture. I don't know if it was instigated by Treloar or someone on the Collingwood side, but I really thought it was really nice the way they all hugged him. And to me, looking at their faces, they had to look like, in theory, we thought we could move past this. In reality, we're just realising we have fucked this up. Well, not we, but the higher-ups have fucked this up for us.
Well, there's quite a few of these little reunion games coming up.
Yeah, so to me, it looked like the players were absorbing the reality of this list being broken.
Same way you did.
Yeah, and as that happened, it was like a dissonance was creeping up, or overcoming it, which I think they're going to probably take a while to process. And as you said, they've got these reunion games coming up. There's going to be more of them. And I think as they happen, they're going to realise, with these players, Treloar, Stevenson and Phillips, and especially Treloar, and I point out Treloar just because he was doing everything the club required to keep their salary cap together. He was back-ending his contract and all that sort of shit so they could pay other players and all that. He was being the total company man. And I think they look at them and go, well, this guy did everything requested of him and you just tossed him out.
Yeah.
And, you know, and people complain about Treloar letting this play out in the media, and I think he has said not a single bad word other than to say, Buckley did say this straight out to me, they don't want you and all this. He's never sort of said, oh, fuck that club.
It was pretty clear at the end of the game how much they didn't want him around.
Yeah, you know, and the only one who sort of spoke out negatively about the club is his wife, Kim Revalian. I don't know if I pronounced that right. And good on her, because she should. You know, but in looking at Treloar, he's going, I love the place. I thought I'd be there forever. I wanted to finish my career here. I love the playing group. It's like, why are the people out there, the supporters out there who are criticising him, why are they seeing that and going, oh, geez, what a prick he is? How dare he love the club and the players? How dare he say he wanted to finish his career there?
What an asshole.
What a prick he is.
He is.
And that, to me, is just, you know, really endemic of what's wrong with this culture where people are going, well, just get on with it. It's fine. It was business.
I think collectively, I mean, it's going to be more and more evident if it's the case over the next few weeks / months. But that list could be fractured in itself.
I think it's
fractured. And that's going to be, it'll take a while to heal. And it may not heal completely until there are certain elements taken out of it at the end of the year or earlier.
I think you can't even take certain elements out of it. I think you really need to wipe it out and start again. And I'm not talking about just the coaching staff. I'm talking about the admin who oversaw this. They're all complicit. Except for Graham Wright, who just joined the club this year. Everyone else on the administration was there and they oversaw this bungling of the salary cap, this horrible handling of the player departures, this terrible handling of the Do Better report. And it's like, they're going, oh, well, we're deciding who's going to be president. It's like, why would we want the perpetuation of this administration? It is been the most inept performance over the last 6 months. And who knows what else is happening behind the scenes. I mean, I keep saying, I think worse is to come. They're just really good at the moment, just playing the PR game and saying, like, yeah, it's business as usual. I think a lot of things that have happened have really fractured different aspects, different components of the club. So you're talking about fan bases here, playing groups there and all that sort of stuff. And it's really just looking at it, it's like everything you've built is just falling apart as you're still running the club. Onto something which you requested, ex-player watch.
Oh, I'm going to enjoy this.
So
how'd they go?
Adam Treloar, 18 disposals, 7 kicks, 11 handballs, 2 marks, 3 tackles, 10 contested possessions, 67% disposal efficiency. I mean, I've been assured that he burns every disposal, so I was a little bit surprised it was at 67% because from what people are telling me, it should be more like around 0%.
You sure there wasn't a negative in front of that?
No. I mean, you know, we did see him hit targets and all that. And actually, I just say with Treloar, I did think, you know, to swap clubs and to play your former club first up, I think that would have been confusing for him too. Because there's one time also when, I can't remember, the Collingwood player took a mark. The Bulldog player took a mark and he ran around his teammate like that, like, oh, I'm not in his... And it's like, no, he's your own teammate. You can do what the hell you want around that here.
Oh, he's been there. I mean, you got to get used to it. It must be hard to completely 100% switch out. And
it probably would have been easier if we played Bulldogs in round 10, so he had 9 games prior where he was getting used to it all. Tom Phillips, great win by Hawthorn over the Bombers.
Wasn't that enjoyable?
I switched off, and then I checked the score, and I was like, oh, it's even. And so I switched it back on, and then Essendon got the lead. I was like, I don't think I switched it back on just to watch Essendon win. And
they like 40-odd points up at halftime.
Yep.
What a side.
If only it was the grand final. Tom Phillips, 21 disposals, 10 kicks, 11 handles, 7 marks, 2 tackles, 1 goal, 7 contested possessions. Now that actually surprised me because everyone tells me he's extremely soft. So to get 7 contested possessions, an 81% disposal efficiency. Again, I've been told he never hits target.
But this is just one game, Sly.
Yeah, it is just one game, so we'll see how it unfolds. But they're 2 pretty solid debuts for new clubs.
Now, hang on. I think there's one more to cover here.
Yeah, Adu Bonso... No. Jaden Stevenson. 33 disposals. 17 kicks, 16 handballs, 5 marks, 7 tackles, kicks 0-2, with 9 contested possessions and 70% disposal efficiency. Again, I've been told is extremely soft. I'm sure people can go, I'll say he short-stepped this contest or whatever.
Don't forget, though, he only ever has good first quarters, then he tapers off.
Yes, he does only have good, there.
And this is only 1 week, Sly.
It is only 1 week. Amazing thing with Stevenson is he's got 33 disposals in a match where his team was absolutely smashed. Mm-hmm. And North are filled an extremely young list now, so it's going to be harder to be getting the ball.
Apparently not.
And, I know some people have said, oh, well, he didn't play midfield for Collingwood. I'm sure that was meant to be down the track. You look at those figures for all 3 of those players, you tell me, people are going, oh, we're not going to miss them. It's like, you seriously don't think if you injected those 3 players on Friday night, we probably wouldn't have won. Our midfield wouldn't have been better. Those 3 there, they'd be in our top 14 players, not like the top 22. They'd be in the top 14. They would be amongst the first pick. The Stevenson one I'm really, really curious about. So, how do you get rid of him? What is the reason outside the salary cap? Because there was obviously a reason they chose him. So, what happened?
You would seriously think by now that the rumour mill would have latched onto some sort of consistently truthful story. There's just been those really, I heard type ones that never really have any feeling of fact behind it. Yep. So I don't know. I really don't know. If you know, comments down the bottom.
Yeah.
Stevenson, if you're watching, I know you do, why don't you put an alias together and let us know.
Yeah.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah, and, maybe just give us a hint about the alias. Maybe call yourself something like Stephen Jadenson. Nobody will pick it up.
Who was that masked man?
This week, we're playing the Blues. This Thursday.
I can't wait.
What do you envisage for a clash against the old rivals? Whoever loses this is going to go to 0-2. Carlton had half the team out and still ran Richmond. They played for about 3 and a bit quarters.
They play well. We were commenting during the game that it's amazing when you have a little bit of structure behind you about how good you can look.
Of the games I played this week, and I watched a number of them, I didn't see a single team who played with greater disorganisation than we did. Every team had some sort of purpose behind the way they moved the ball. Every team had a identifiable brand. I mean, that's Buckley's favourite word, the brand. And it was fluent, and it was dangerous, and it was great to watch.
And it was only round 1.
It was only round 1, but you know what? Buckley's been coached for, this is his 10th year, so I would hope that the brand would sort of be... Yeah.
It only feels like 32.
Yeah, it does. So against Carlton, probably get side bottom back. Potentially Jay Rantel will debut. There's talk that Josh Dacos trained with the reserves, so he could be dropped because, you play him as a defensive forward and he doesn't, produce a lot of stats in your highly functional forward line.
God damn it, Sly. He should be dropped and he should learn how not to play that role in future in the VFL.
Yeah, well,
is there a VFL comp still? Do we have it?
Yeah, I think there is.
Are they playing?
Oh, they play.
They still do these practice matches where they play the team that we're playing?
Yeah, you know what I've actually noticed, just as an aside, what I've noticed? Collingwood had 5 things we learned about the Bulldogs game.
Did we?
And it was like, Darcy Moore, isn't he a great defender?
Jeez, that one comes as a surprise.
And there were all things like that and then the VFL side was just, Nathan Murphy played well, and it was, you're looking at it going, well, these guys should just be plug and play. And it really feels that what's happened is where you might have had some sort of balanced perspective of the AFL and the VFL teams, it feels like now somebody said, look, you got to ramp this up to cover for the fact that we're just really struggling, and you got to give people hope, because if they don't have hope, they're going to come storm the Lexus or the Holder Centre, whatever the hell it's called nowadays, and they're going to tear it apart brick by brick.
The Watch This Space Centre.
Yeah. So it just feels like they're really pumping a lot of shit across the social media airwaves.
That's probably a very good descriptive term.
As a PR exercise. So Sidebottom will probably come back in. He's the only player of note. I know they might debut Rant or whoever, but they're not going to bring in anyone who's going to have 100 possessions. Braden Sire, would you keep him in? He really looks a shadow of the dominant figure who was so integral to our charge up.
Yeah, I'd keep him in, because really, who else?
Oliver Henry, would you keep him in after 4 touches?
Oh, I'd give him another look in. But the thing is, clearly the pace of this game, even though I don't think the Bulldogs were all that great, no. And I don't think it was a rapidly fast-paced game, but he still looked a yard off of it. And that can be, maybe the first pre-season, perform well in the first pracky match, tape it off after that. Maybe it's just catching up with him.
But again, he didn't play last year, so...
But I wouldn't mind seeing at least one more week. And I think the thing is, you're going to keep seeing a lot of these kids being rotated through this side. It has to happen, especially once the decimation of injuries takes place in round 3.
And Callum Brown was the medical sub, which ironically we didn't have to use.
And you think God doesn't have a sense of humour.
What I'd like to see is for Buckley to give continuity to the younger players. The one thing I commented, I was speaking to somebody in the know today, he sort of, he backs guys like Josh Thomas, and Callum Brown is really back. I like Callum Brown, but I really think several times in the last 2 years he should have been dropped for an extended run in the VFL to rediscover his touch. Obviously it wasn't going to happen last year, but keeping him in the seasons where the pressure was high, when he was down on confidence, wasn't helping him. But then you had guys like Josh Dacos, for several years, he was just getting dropped at every opportunity. It was like, he might have had a quieter game or whatever, but you're dropping him, but then this guy has a quieter game and you're picking him. And then again, you look at the Josh Thomas, he's had a quieter year and he's around one side. So I really hope Buckley just sort of goes, let's give this guy some continuity, give him a chance to, get a good run at AFL level and acclimate and see if they can find their tempo. And after 3-4 weeks, if they're really struggling, then we'll drop them down. But don't just drop them straight away and instill in them. You'd really think that if you get sort of dropped immediately, you're going to start to think, okay, the moment I have a quiet game, I'm getting dropped. And you start to maybe second guess yourself a little bit. You don't want to debilitate their confidence so early. Give them a season or two before you do
it. These are moments of learning.
Yeah. So against Carlton, you think we'll lose by how much?
About 72 points.
Is that a serious estimation?
I don't think we'll win. I don't think we'll get blattered, though. I'd say probably 4 or 5 goals.
Okay.
And that's... Look, I think Carlton would have come away from that Richmond game thinking, well, we pushed the last 68 years premiers before we dropped off. We should take some confidence out of that and bring it into the arch enemy. Do they still hate us? I don't know whether we care about them anymore. Does anyone care about Carlton anymore?
The Carlton, no. Do we still hate them, you mean?
Yeah.
Or do they hate us?
Oh, well, I think they still bang on about hating us, but really, I mean, they've done nothing for, 3 decades now?
Since 95.
But I don't think anyone cares about them anymore.
No, I think that's going to change.
We might care at half-time, though.
I can't see us winning. I think there's too many holes in our side. I think Carlton starting to form some cohesion. A couple of really good recruits. Sard was good last week.
Well, you've been predicting this for the last 24 years.
I'll get it right eventually.
Oh, you have to.
Pump games into a lot of the younger players. McKay got a kick 6 last week. Was inaccurate. Made a few bad decisions. Midfield seems a lot stronger than ours. With Cripps always kills us. Always dominates us. Walsh was really good last week.
That'll be where we lose it.
So... Yeah, and we've actually tied them now in losses, and we've beaten them in the last few years. So
we're due now to go back behind the 8 ball, you reckon?
Yeah.
No, so it's the Collingwood way.
I'd be very surprised. I think it's going to be probably very similar to what we saw against the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs. Yeah, they should change their emblem. I think it's going to be very similar in there'll be an early lead established, and then it'll just be that will pretty much be the margin throughout the game. So I think we'll lose by 46 points.
Oh, look, I think it'll be telling. Like, I think if you had to go just purely on last week's form, and again, it's round one where we see all sorts of strange things happen, I don't think we can run it. But we may pull one out of the bag. Who knows?
Well,
if you know, just put in the comments down below.
Yeah, Mr. Stephen Jadenson. In terms of whoever loses goes to 0-2. So
it's a long road back from there, apparently.
And then we play Brisbane.
It's a big couple of weeks coming up.
So we have like a pretty tough 6 weeks. And maybe if we go 0-2, we'll start looking at the next month ahead, because there is the potential to be like 0-6 before they get what you think would be a few easier games with Gold Coast and North. Although watching the Gold Coast against Eagles, they look really, really good. So
it's only round one though.
Yeah. So there's a long way to go. Any final thoughts?
No. Look, it'd be nice if it's not too much trouble, Collingwood, to beat Carlton. But we won't be surprised if you don't.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of apathy, I think, this year with us. We'll try and keep it upbeat, won't we?
Us?
No, I don't think so.
We'll have passion for something.
It'll going to be interesting. Like I don't think I want to live the lie that we're contenders for the whole half a season. I'd rather just concede that we're in another development phase, but make it fucking count.
I think Freddie Mercury had a really good song about what we are this year.
We are the champions?
No. Yes, I'm the great.
I'm in love with my car.
What a song. Well done to the AFLW team.
Yes, we should probably talk a little bit about them because they're every chance to make the grand final and lose it.
I don't want to go that far, but I actually really enjoyed watching it.
No, I must admit, it's actually more of a highlight than the seniors at the moment because they're playing so well.
But it's not just that. Like, I watched the Bulldogs game and I just was apathetic already. And then the next day, I made sure I tuned into the AFLW because I was out and I was like, get home in time and watch it. And I actually felt that sort of that nervousness you feel before a game, like, oh, come on, we're expected to win, but, make sure you win. And then we just totally blew them away really early.
And can you imagine then putting the foot in the throat?
And it was like...
Wouldn't that be a novelty?
But it was also enjoyable from the point of view of, geez, they really play an exciting brand of football. Yeah. They try and, they do play a bit of keepings off at time, but then they try and move it really quickly. They got players like Brianna Davey and Chloe Malloy and Livingston and Schleicher, who are like really exciting players to watch. So I'm watching and going, this is what I want from the other team also, but you broke that last year. Don't break the AFLW side in some similar way, because I'm sure you're capable of it. No,
look, I really hope they go all the way. It'd be really quite enjoyable to watch that and see them win. I didn't think I'd ever get to this point. I always took I'd watch all the games and stuff, but it's probably this year I've felt a little bit of passion. Because I think you can't manufacture this stuff. It has to grow with time.
I mean, you have the natural patriotism of being allied to your side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, I've always been watching them, but even last year they were starting to come up. But this year they really have they have system about the way they play.
And that's, you can really start appreciating that they've worked hard, and that self-belief with them must be through the roof right now.
Yep.
And I just sincerely hope they go all the way.
And it was good to see that their coach, when he took over last year, when they had Chloe Malloy playing as a defender, and he said, let's take this exciting, highly talented player and put her up forward where she can wreak some damage against opposition. Now she's probably one of the most feared forwards. She's not a high possession getter, but like whenever she's around the ball, something happens.
Oh, definitely.
Geez, you wonder if the other coach might take some note of that and go, how can I make our side potentially explosive and dangerous outside of resigning? I
wouldn't think so.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
About the seniors, about anything in general. No, as I said, I just I hope we win this week, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't. So, there's not much else to say.
Yeah. I'm really not looking forward to this game because I think it could get ugly.
I just want to say, though, to the people out there who went through our player recap and were sitting there thinking, when's this going to go? Just forget about it. Well, we're not. We're going to do this every single week until we get sick of it.
Yeah. Well, you heard it from the man.
Especially Stevenson.
Jadenson.
Yeah, we should have him on here as a guest now.
Yeah.
Especially when he's won the Brownlow at the end of the year.
Oh, he'd definitely come to us first, as the...
Oh, he would. He's already been on the... Stevenson Jaden just sent me a text message saying, make it so.
It's almost like you wish some, director who's full of delusions of grandeur to come and just recut the list into something resembling greatness.
The Snyder Cut of Collingwood.
Only to be exposed once people see it. Anyway, we'll be back next week.
Will we?
Okay, we're going to be back next week.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we're back
We'll
next
be in
week.
a few days, actually.
Yep, later.
Don't go changing.